Welcome. It's Joe Volpe, the publisher of Corriere Canadese, North America's only Italian language daily newspaper, on behalf of Go Live TV and Corcan Media Group with the comment of the day. And the comment of the day is pie in the sky, politics on immigration and refugees. So, in the last 2 weeks, federal ministers have taken to social media and the usual email channels in an effort to stem the erosion of support for the immigration and refugee policies being contested openly and vigorously by Ontario's new Premier, Doug Ford. I think they're whistling past the graveyard. A piece sent by Minister of CBSA, Canadian Border Service Agencies, Ralph Goodale, on the 23rd of July was entitled "Confidence in the Integrity of Our Borders." That will have done little to dissuade Premier Ford from demanding that Ontario is owed $200 million for having to deal with the federal government's inability to address border crossers. Toronto is insisting on $64.5 million for unexpected shelter costs. Now, that's the context in which the province frames the debate. In other words, money. Aris Babikian, newly elected MPP for Scarborough Agent Court and former Citizenship Court judge, former refugee from Armenia, says that he and 9 other refugees, now members of the Ontario legislature, are confident that the Premier is on the right track, in other words, in asking for this money. There is a perception of abuse and incompetence that erodes the public support for a system that is otherwise valid and productive. So Mr. Babikian has been here for 40 years. He wants to open the doors to others who, like him, have or had legitimate bases for their flight to Canada. Minister Goodale's context is a numbers game in which he seeks empathy by comparing with past entries. He offers up high volumes of refugee claims in previous years. For example, 45,000 in 2001, 33,000 in 2002, and 37,000 in 2008. Last year, he admits, nearly 50,000 made asylum claims in Canada, with some 21,000 entering in an irregular way. The majority of these irregulars came through Saint Bernard de la Colle in Quebec. Well, how many? He adds that the numbers for this year are up a bit, but he doesn't say how much. Minister Hussein, his colleague at Refugees and Immigration Canada, submitted a plan to Parliament targeting 43,000 for 2018. A reassuring Minister Goodale itemizes the steps any asylum seeker must satisfy prior to a hearing. The public, of course, is seized with security and safety concerns. At the hearing, when it takes place, if the applicant must convince the officials of their need for protection from persecution, torture, terror, or war in their home country. If they do not, and the subsequent exhaustion of certain defined rights of appeal and due process, then they have to leave. But what if they don't? Citing Section 133 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, otherwise known as IRPA, as a, and quote, a pivotal part of the Canadian law, end of quote, Minister Goodale underlines the fact that it has been the case since the early 1960s. It flows from the United Nations Convention on Refugees, which Canada signed nearly 50 years ago. Well, this is all well and good. but border crossers are coming from the United States of America. Goodale states categorically that, and I quote again, the vast majority of these border crossers have already met admissibility criteria to enter the United States before ever getting to the Canadian border. End of quote. Keep in mind, the United States is a safe third country. So what's the issue? The province asks, with some legitimacy, if you can't control the border and you won't send these applicants back to the United States of America, then at least reimburse us for the increased costs we have to incur to accommodate them, it adds. Meanwhile, Goodale's officials raid job sites and schools in search of working irregular entrants and their children for deportation. Sorry, Minister Goodale, your arguments aren't very convincing. I hope the next missive is much more so. Joe Volpe for Corriere Canadese, Go Live TV, and Corcan Media Group, inviting you to stay tuned for comment in Italian and Portuguese. Until the next time.